So we've both been in Entrata for a long time, and I don't know what you all know about Entrata, so we get to take just a couple of minutes just to give you some context about who we are, what we do. Probably the number one thing when I get a chance to meet somebody and tell them I work at Entrata that they say is, "Oh, you guys have the bus, right?" Yeah, not only do we have a bus, we actually have 2 buses, and it's a thing. We love them. If you ever came to work here, you'd have to stand in front of the bus and get your picture taken. So that's a thing. Another thing about Entrata, maybe some of y'all know, we once threw the world's largest dodgeball game. Anybody heard of this? Was like, I'm gonna throw this up for like I don't know, a second here and see if this even works. Will this play?
Some of these folks were probably in middle school when we threw this, Brett.
Alex, do you have to click it on that side? If you click it, just do me a favor, just go like 25 seconds in. We don't need to see the full intro. But yeah, we had like 3,000 people down in Provo and had the world's largest dodgeball game. The only thing that was kind of a bummer was that Guinness World Records would not recognize us as having had the world's largest dodgeball game. It's kind of annoying. But it turns out it was because people that were in the game weren't actually like leaving after they got hit. And I guess Guinness wanted us to like have an official game that was officiated, and we couldn't quite pull it off. We can go ahead and skip past this here. Okay. Another thing you just might know us by, we're a little bit proud of this last bit, but yeah, we had a pretty big announcement just earlier this year. After 18 years of business, being a bootstrapped company, we had a pretty big raise. I'll just tell you a little bit about the folks in the picture here. Far right is Dave Bateman, who is Entrata's founder and CEO until he stepped down late last year. Dave brought in Adam Edmonds in the middle. And Adam joined us in November of last year, and in about 6 months, just helped us raise a cool $500 million. So naturally, we had a party with about 500 million pieces of confetti. Oh, here we go, back. So yeah, we had a little bit of an event earlier this year, and it was pretty exciting to be a part of. Now, just a little bit about us and what we do. The main thing we just want to be able to provide context for, before we start talking about roadmap prioritization and product strategy here at Entrata, just to know what we do. And in a nutshell, we build property management software for the multifamily housing industry. Okay, that's a fancy way of saying the apartment space. So one way to think about us is, just picture an apartment building. What Entrata does is we have a core property management software that helps our clients, run all of their leasing and rents and et cetera. And then from that base platform, we're basically vertically integrated anything they might need. So I'll give you some ideas of some of the areas that we operate. And we'll support all of their online marketing and other marketing needs to help drive traffic to their communities. We'll support all their leasing needs to help them get people converted from lead to lease. We'll support all of the resident interaction needs, such as rent payment, maintenance, and so forth. So you kind of get the idea, whether it's helping our clients manage their utilities, give them insights in their portfolio performance, and ultimately, helping them try to drive their businesses more effectively. That's what we do. Adam, our CEO, since coming on board, has really emphasized a value I think we've always held closely here at Entrata, but we are customer obsessed. And I think a lot of us probably would agree and feel likewise within our businesses. But in particular, I put emphasis on that we want to be able to drive intentional outcomes for our customers. And the last thing I'll tell you just about our product organization, which Trevor and I are some of the leadership team, is that we want to create solutions with purpose, right? With intent. We don't want to just funnel a bunch of feature requests and input from customers and just go build like robots. We really want to be able to accomplish 3 things. And we want to deliver unexpected convenience. We're deliberate in the use of that word, right? We don't want to just meet the status quo. We want to delight our customers. We want to enable smarter decisions that, are specific to our customer base and help how they operate their properties. And last but not least, we want to make sure that we can actually prove, demonstrate, drive measurable results and impact. So that's a quick overview of what we do, sets the stage for some of the insights that Trevor's going to share with us.
All right, so I got a question. Does your job as a product manager ever feel like this? I told you this is going to be pretty GIF heavy, right? I'm looking out, watching your faces. Does your job ever feel like this? I'm seeing some heads nod. I'm seeing some of you, blood is draining from your face as the PTSD sets in, realizing that your entire job and profession has been boiled down to a single 2-second animation. You know, Brett described an environment we have at Entrata that's very dynamic. There are a lot of moving pieces, a lot of strategic customers that we work with, a lot of cross-product initiatives and efforts. So when it comes to this concept of roadmap prioritization, we feel extreme empathy for any of the challenges that any product managers feel in this regard. And for each of you, those different birdies might look a little different. It might be strategic customer needs, might be cross-product requests, might be technical debt. And then even outside of this, there could be those things that you are discovering that you're really passionate about wanting to do, but that's like the runt that's not even in this picture that's dying off of the side of the frame, right? This is a really, really kind of challenging environment to be in. And we want to kind of talk a little bit about how Entrata thinks about approaching this problem and understanding this problem, and how we're trying to get better at making really smart decisions around prioritization. So what's the answer? Well, it's simple. You just score it, right? Like, we just have to have a great scoring model, and we'll be able to easily come to alignment across all stakeholders over what should be prioritized. And then we just go and execute, right? Some of you are smiling and not buying it, right? There are a lot of good scoring models out there, though. Do we have any fans of the Kano model? Anyone uses it? A couple heads are nodding. Kind of, sometimes, okay. What about the rice model? Anyone use the rice model here? I got a hand in the back. Okay. What about Moscow? Anyone use Moscow? Anyone heard of Moscow? A few more hands are raised. We've got some teams at Entrata that like using Moscow and do it pretty successfully. All of these models are, you know, essentially cost-benefit analysis. And there's nothing wrong with having a scoring model and implementing it into the process for prioritizing our roadmap. But I think we want to suggest that if we just go straight to this step, we're probably missing something really fundamental if we're seeing and experiencing that challenge that comes with having so many different voices competing for priorities on our roadmaps. Because even with the scoring models in place, I don't know about you, but it still feels like this sometimes. And this homeboy ain't gonna get anything done, right? Like this is not gonna produce anything effective. So what's missing? What I think Brett and I want to talk a little bit about, and then circle back to this concept of roadmap prioritization, is if we're in this environment, we like to start at Entrata by talking about strategery, right? So this is the element that we think is most important in trying to understand the root problem of experiencing this roadmap strain and having so many competing priorities that we're trying to organize around. And so as part of that, I think what we want to do is give you a little bit of insight into how the Entrata product team approaches this idea of creating product strategy, and then where that fits in our process for actually coming up with roadmap prioritization. And to help kind of create some abstract around this concept, I've boiled it down to 4 key components that we can think of as like a product strategy pyramid. And even though we have lots of different products, different product teams, different product suites that have applied these components in a little bit different ways because of the needs of their products, These 4 elements we try to make sure exist across all the different products and product strategies that we're putting together that we really need to start with before we even think of roadmap prioritization. And I've talked to a lot of folks with doing interviews and meeting and networking a lot of product managers. And I think this is an area that sometimes doesn't get enough attention. And we tend to kind of jump straight to what should we be doing? How do we prioritize the work that's in front of us? And maybe not spend enough time taking that step back and really thinking about, have we developed a product strategy that can really unify all of our stakeholders and give us really clear vision going forward? So what are these 4 elements? First of all, we have to create a vision, and that can look like a lot of different things, and it can be documented in a lot of different ways. But really, what we want to do is define the core problems that we're trying to solve. We at Entrata are big fans of jobs theory and Competing Against Luck, the book by Clayton Christensen. And that has really informed how we think about defining problems and defining opportunities to be able to solve those problems. But we really have to start with that vision and that understanding of why are we doing this? Why does this product exist? What are we actually in business to accomplish? And sometimes in my experience, it seems like that's a really obvious question with a really obvious answer. But when you start to talk about it and question it out loud, it doesn't always come out to be as obvious as you might think. Second thing we want to do, and what we try to do, and we're generating these product strategies, is to organize that vision in a way that's really easy to consume. And this could be by thinking about strategic pillars, areas of focus, key areas of functionality. There's different ways to think about how to organize it. But one of the benefits of organizing your vision is the ability to create some boundaries for yourself. Defining what your strategy is trying to accomplish is as important as creating a boundary for what your product isn't going to be and what problems your product isn't going to solve. And having that layer of organization can help you create those boundaries so that there can be really clear. Next thing we want to do is connect this to value. And for us, we think it's really important that when we're thinking about value, everything connects down to what is the customer and the user getting out of this product at the end of the day. And a lot of us have probably heard and gone through exercises of doing value propositions. We like to deconstruct those propositions into very succinct statements of value. And those value statements become the North Star for exactly what it is we're trying to accomplish. And we want them to be very outcome based. We want them to describe exactly what it is that our customers are going to achieve value wise from us delivering this solution and shipping new features out to them on a regular basis. And that also can be really challenging. I think those who are here from Entrata know that we've gone through this exercise a lot of times. We've iterated a lot of different times on it. And every time we sit down and want to reconstruct these value statements for a product, it takes a lot of time and effort to really think through how do we want to create value and how do we want to describe and articulate that value. We also need to make sure that that value and that connects back to the company or objectives as well. And we'll talk about that in a second. And then finally, we've got to measure success in our products. The last piece of this strategy pyramid for us is not just defining these statements of value, but defining the way in which we're going to measure the delivery of that value, which can also be really challenging depending on how abstract those statements are. But having very clear, defined KPIs, or what we like to call product performance metrics, is really, really critical to the way that we think about not just success for products, but success for product management at Entrata. We have to know, are we actually delivering value the way we've described it? And we need to be able to measure that over time and have that tie back to things like our roadmap and the prioritization of the items in the roadmap. So how does this look? What we want to do is give you a couple of examples, practical examples of how we've applied these ideas to some very specific product strategies that exist across the Entrata platform today to kind of give you a taste of how we approach this. So I'm going to start by talking about a little bit of a newer product that we have introduced to the market in the last year and a half. We call it Market Strategy Hub. And it's an evolution of a number of smaller products that we have offered on our marketing suite over the course of the last decade. But these smaller products were not being utilized, and they were not being taken advantage of the way we wanted them to. We weren't creating the value that we thought we could with the way we had positioned these individual small products. So we took a step back a couple years ago and went on an intense journey to do a bunch of discovery, talk to a lot of customers. And this process of creating the vision really started by defining what are the core problems that exist today that we're not really aware of or not doing enough to tackle as a business on the marketing side. And so we came up with 3 very distinct but core problems through that discovery process that kind of led us to an eye-opening moment where we realized that there was a huge opportunity for us to think about not just repackaging our small products, but bringing something really new and fresh to the table that was going to solve these problems potentially that no one else had been even trying to solve before then. And we talked to a lot of customers. You can see as we started documenting our vision, we included a lot of quotes from a lot of the users and marketing directors who were involved in needing these problems solved. We crafted a vision. We wrote it out, we rewrote it out, we put it and documented in, and I've kind of simplified it here for you. And we also did a lot of analysis on the market itself to try to understand what does the market opportunity look like? How large is the market? And what are our assumptions around the willingness of the market to adopt an ability for us to solve these very specific problems? And how would it look like compared to the existing product offerings that we have today? And we had a lot of data in this case based off of those existing smaller products to be able to go back and help us understand what are our customers choosing to use today and how are they using those small products to solve some of the problems that we wanted to touch on. So the next step, organize, right? We went through a process of really trying to define what Marketing Strategy Hub is and what it isn't. And we came up with this visual diagram, and this visual has saved us in so many of the conversations we've had with our engineering partners, our design partners, even the executive team, because in this one visual, I can lay out very clearly to anyone that wants to understand what it is, a way for them to catch that vision really quickly and understand that this hub consists of 3 main components. And there's a central analytics tool that's going to allow them to do their lead source management and have analytics around spend management. But then around that, we're going to be having all these connectors to different lead generation tools that we've already built in our system over the course of the last decade. From there, we have to define those, like I said, succinct statements of value. We call them value statements at Entrata. And this is a difficult exercise. And every time we go through it, we want to re-examine and make revisions to it. But this is an example of what some of those statements might look like and what they do look like in the case of this product. We try to be very specific. So, maximizing lead generation opportunities with lowest cost. Like there's a very specific driver there for us to be able to reduce the amount of spend that our customers are having to spend today in their marketing campaigns without sacrificing the quality and number of leads they need to hit all of their leasing goals that they have on site. But we don't want to just stop here at the value statements, right? We want to be able to figure out how do we measure each of these statements. So that last piece, that measure piece, is where we will go through and actually add very specific metrics that we've associated to each one of these statements. Those metrics, like I said, are critical because every time we sit down now with all of this in place and start to talk about and think about what do our prioritizations need to be for the coming quarter, for the coming year, for the next 8 quarters, we have this guiding document and framework for making sure that everything that we do aligns to moving the needle on these very core metrics that we've defined for the product. And it absolutely has created a lot of clarity for us to be able to say no to some really good things that don't align with these core value drivers that we've identified and agreed to as a strategy team. So this has been a really great tool for our teams to use.
So I might jump in and just take a couple extra minutes to share a lens from my side of the house. So I work very specifically in helping our clients with their utility management. Okay. Does anybody else in this room do anything with working with the utilities, out of curiosity? Oh man, Santosh, are you still in the room? He abandoned me. I think I should probably just leave the stage right now. I can see you guys are not lighting up as we talk about electricity. But for our customer base, I'm just gonna share really briefly how we've used the same pattern that and same framework that Trevor described to think about how we provide values for our customers. Okay, but I'm gonna summarize fast. The problem for our customers is pretty simple. If you've ever worked with utility companies, they're awful. They're so hard to work with. And I wish I had thought ahead of time to put up an image of like a utility bill, but I'm going to tell you the name of this company. No joke. There's a utility company out there. It's called American Bottoms. It does sewer. And when they send you a bill in the mail, because you can't get it online, it's literally, anybody know what a dot matrix printer is? Like, you know, those old school like forms where it's like printed in. I wish I thought to actually put it in here because you guys could have seen it. When they put their dollars and cents that you owe them, there's pre-printed on the form they use like a dotted line, and the dollars are supposed to be on one side of that dotted line, and the cents are supposed to be on the other side of that dotted line. Can you get the visual? Right? Our clients, property managers, hate dealing with utility companies. So the problem we're trying to solve in this particular space, the thing I get excited about every day is we just want to be their interface to the utility companies. We want to manage all their utility bills. We want to process them, get them to the customers so the customers can pay them on time, you know, keep those lights on, avoid any problems with them. And then we want to go a little deeper, right? We want to get to the point where we can help our customers actually now start to analyze this utility data. This is where the real work comes in, right? The stuff we really get excited about. Analyze that utility data and find opportunities for them to create savings, right? And that's what we're trying to do. So we know the problem. We've organized ourselves in a very similar way to that Trevor described. We essentially took our problems down to, I think if I'm in the right order here, let me see here. I'm going to skip this slide and come back in a second. So we took our problems and boiled it down to 3 distinct value statements. This is the elevator pitch, if you will, right? If our sales team's out engaged with a product management company, they don't really want to talk about utilities either. Unfortunately, nobody wants to talk about utilities, but we come and say, we're going to help you maximize recapture of utility expense from your residents. They get excited about that. We say we're going to help you create NOI or increase NOI by creating utility cost savings. They get a little more excited about that. And then we say, we're also just going to completely take the burden of working with utility companies off of your plate. And, you know, then they're actually like perked up. They actually talk to us for a little bit. But the key thing is for our strategy to succeed, much like Trevor talked about, we have to know that what we're striving to solve as a, you know, from a product lens, it can be measured and demonstrated, right? So I get kind of, I'm known as saying all the time that a value statement has to be clear, measurable, and demonstrable. And so much like Trevor showed, we've defined metrics. We train our customers on what these metrics mean, and these become the lens by which our customers actually measure the success, whether we're meeting those jobs. What we're talking about, though, in summary, I'll back up to the slide I skipped here. I don't think he showed up. Some of you probably know Steve Arntz from Campfire. Oh, Steve, he's in the back. So I can apologize to you actually in person, Steve, because I'm about to butcher your strategic brilliance, right? But I like the way Steve looks at this, right? So we boil strategy down to basically two buckets: experience and growth, right? And when we're talking about experience here, you can see the slide. We're really talking about the customer's experience with the product. That's my lens of my oversimplification of Steve's brilliance, right? So we're talking about product market fit, right? We all focus on trying to build the right product market fit. I love the rule of 40, right? If you're familiar with that, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, look it up. Our customer is going to view your product as essential. Would they be upset if your product was removed from their lives? At Entrata, again, we focus a lot on value creation. All these things Trevor talked about. We need to understand our customers. We need to understand the jobs that they need to get done. In my mind, value proposition design boils down very simply to understanding the job and then realizing there's either an opportunity to create gain or relieve pain, right? Relieve pain, that's easy. That's the customer feedback. Everybody can explain pain that they're experiencing and ask you to solve it. Creating gain is where that delighting level comes in, right? Those are the things that people don't tell you about in the interview, but that you see by knowing what they're actually trying to accomplish, observing their behavior, realizing that there's friction in the process, and you can find ways to eliminate that friction, right? Growth, we all have bosses, I assume. Even if you own your business, you got some investors probably, so you got bosses. And I put some real examples of company growth goals. In Entrata, we have a goal to grow 30% revenue in this coming year. In my world, I put a second example within our utility services suite. We have some new utility services that we've abbreviated as UEO. They relate to utility expense optimization that we're trying to bring to market. So we've set a very specific goal to gain 10 referenceable customers for all of the new UEO services by year end 2022. And then the third one's an example. I mean, this might be you, right? You may be at a point where your goal is to gain 10 new customers, hit 40,000 in MRR before the end of the year, right? Strategy is the bridge between the experience that we're trying to create with our products and the goals, growth objectives that our businesses need to hit. But it doesn't work very well if we haven't achieved that strong product market fit. We cannot demonstrate and prove to our customers that we're creating the value and the outcomes that we want to achieve if we try to scale that, right? We've done that a few times here at Entrata, done it in reverse order. And if you've done it in reverse order, you know it's not good. So anyway, that's what I wanted to add to the discussion here today. And as it relates to roadmap prioritization, I'm 100% in line with Trevor in the conviction, as I expect a lot of us are here, that if you don't know the combination of these outcomes that you're trying to produce, the experience you're trying to produce for your customers, and only you know your customers, right? We don't know, the companies you guys even work for and who your customers are, but you need to know that. You need to know what experience you're trying to create. And of course, we've got growth goals as an organization. That has to govern the roadmap. The biggest thing I probably worry about at Entrata is that we can get so caught up, right? We get so myopically focused on that 2-week sprint cycle, and we feel really good about ourselves. At Entrata, we release like 1,500 tasks, like features into our platform, like every 2 months for our customer base. And we can sometimes pat ourselves on the back and say, we're like super innovative, like we crush this. But I worry that we just iterate in circles and we're actually meaningfully moving boldly with clarity and with that purpose that we talked about at the beginning to the outcomes that we want to generate for our customers. And if you can, take anything away from this discussion, that's you can see how you can apply it to your own business. It's hopefully that it's this idea that by having that clear strategy, understanding the outcomes that you're trying to drive toward, like don't let anything come into that roadmap that is not, you can't draw a direct line to the customer, the product experience you're trying to create, or those corporate goals, those company goals that you need to achieve. So I'm gonna give it back to you, Trevor.
All right, so yeah, let's tie this up a little here. Hopefully no one here is feeling gypped that they thought they were coming about to hear this robust discussion around roadmap prioritization and end up being a discussion about product strategy, right? But as Brett and I were talking about this and thinking about, what's a symptom and what's a problem, and what in our experience has been the combination of both, it really became evident that so much of the symptoms that we feel with the pain around roadmap prioritization just always come back to this idea of product strategy. And I will tell you that even having a great product strategy is not a silver bullet to make it necessarily really easy to get into the actual prioritization of a roadmap. There is a separate conversation to be had there. And there is a good place for utilizing frameworks and tools and scoring models. But we wanted to start at what we felt like was typically the root problem that a lot of us face. And so just in summary, you think about what are the major building blocks that go into everything we do as product managers? Well, I like to think of the roadmap as the what, right? It defines what we're doing. And then the backlog becomes the how, where we really partner with engineering, and they provide a lot of the input on how we're going to build what we want to do. But if we only are focused in these two areas, I think it is likely we're going to end up in that scenario with those baby chicks, all hungry, all starving, all want food, and we only have a limited amount of food to offer, and it seems like we're always making someone unhappy, right? And while, again, I don't think there's a silver bullet solution to relieving that pain entirely, the thing that's missing from this diagram is, of course, the strategy piece. And to me, the strategy is really about the why and the who, and incorporates so much that we can't cover in 30 minutes. I touched a little bit on it. Brett touched on it. There's so many different topics that we could dive in much more deeply. But having that component there, having it documented, having it thought through, going through that process, establishing a framework, really, in my experience, can make a big difference in being able to get to that second phase, the what, and feeling a lot more confident and a lot more aligned as a team around going through that process of prioritizing and being confident that you're doing the right things in the right order to achieve that vision and achieve that strategy that you've laid out.